welcome to Noosa for the 39th edition of the Garmin Noosa Triathlon, an event that started in 1983. It was humble beginnings then. There was no big transition area with tens of thousands of athletes. It was just a bunch of bikes leant up against trees. They went searching for those, searching for the course, and then they got this great event underway, which is now the biggest mass participation Olympic distance triathlon in the world. I'm Matthew Keenan. I get the chance to be able to watch the very best come across the finish line of the blue carpet in just a couple of hours. And I'm joined by somebody who won this event back in 1998. Belinda Granger, this is a magnificent event. It's been huge in your career. It's great to be back post the COVID pandemic and with the borders open and huge numbers once again.
Oh look, to have this event and to have seen it grown over the past 18 years, I've lived in Noosa now for 18 years, and to see it grow, continually grow year after year, it truly is one of my favourite events of the year.
So beyond the fact that you now are a local, 20 years living in Noosa,
well,
just about
20 years. Once I get my 20-year card, then I'm classified as a local.
What does it mean to the triathlon community, this event?
Absolutely everything, and it's not just the triathlon community. I think it's the community in general. I mean, you can see the sheer number of people that come over this week, stay on a little longer. Our cafes are full, our restaurants are full, the beach is full, and I just think it's not only just such a wonderful event for triathletes around Australia and the world, but just for Noosa and the Sunshine Coast itself, it's just a great, particularly post-pandemic.
And it's not just about Sunday, it's not just about the triathlon. They've got the mass participation events in there as well. All the age group is smiling for Smitty, raising great funds for research into cancer, particularly prevention of melanomas, etc. But yesterday, the Legends Tri, you were part of that as well, and you picked some good teammates. I did, and it's funny, when I don't get to decide who's in my team, but I did say, look, I'm not running quite as well as I used to, so put me in a team where, it's not that great. And of course, I had Kai Hurst as my swimmer, Lauren Perry as my bike rider, fresh off winning the Australian Crit, and I'm like, no, this is not what I wanted. But look, it's one of my favourite events, the Legends Tri, and Super Saturday. We weren't able to have it last year. To have it back this year, I mean, you could not wipe the smile off my face. Another one of the great highlights from yesterday, the ASICS 5K Bolt. I love the 5K Bolt. The elite men, the elite women, they were fantastic to watch. One of the all-time greats of Australian sport, Steve Monteghetti, just a month after celebrating his 60th birthday, he went for the world 5-kilometre record, and he missed it by 3 seconds. Gee, it was good.
Honestly, when we heard he was coming, and I thought when Craig Mottram was saying, he's got X amount of time, and I'm thinking, he's not going to get it. It's a whitewash. He's out. And I thought, far out, maybe he's going to get this. And then it came right down to the wire, right down to the line, and honestly, I had goosebumps on my arms because it was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and then on Saturday morning as well as part of Saturday, we had the Super Kids. That was a sensational event. My daughter got to participate in part of that as a buddy for one of the athletes that was going around. That was a real joy to be able to watch. Friday, we kicked it off early in the morning. There was the fundraiser for the McGrath Foundation. That was an important event as well. So many kids out there running. The school kids went there before they had their first English or maths class.
I think there was something like 650 kids from St Andrews alone that turned up. And yeah, I said to them, what's it like going back to school now? They're like, not great. We want to stay here at the beach. So I can sort of understand. But how amazing to get up that early, take part in that run, get back on the bus back to school. Yeah, the kids are amazing.
And on Friday morning, we also had the Tour de Garth, the Garth Proud Ride, a tribute to the man who started this event, sadly passed away 5 years ago. His legacy remains. They'll be running across and riding across the Garth Proud Bridge throughout the race today. So let's take a look at the course maps where it all kicks off down at the beach, Belinda.
And we start with a 1.5 kilometre single oblong loop in the Laguna Bay, the iconic Noosa main beach. They head straight out for about 610 metres. They then turn left and left again before heading back towards the beach. You can see that last left-hand turn before turning right into the beach, up onto the sand. Technical aspects, if it's windy, if that northerly's blowing, then it can get quite tricky. Onto the bike, straight out towards Koroi to that turnaround. They just shy of Koroi, of course, the infamous Garmin Hill. Akagindia Drive. It's about a 3-kilometre climb, 3.1% average gradient. Then all the way out towards Koroi. They'll then turn, make their way all the way back down that descent into Gympie Terrace and also back into Noosa. Fast and furious course on the way home, I have to say, and
The road surface is perfect. The local council has
Absolutely
invested
perfect.
quite a bit in the road surface. It is idyllic. I do love that Garmin climb. I got to do it on Friday, but I did it as part of a group as opposed to... This is a non-drafting event, which is significant when it comes to that bike.
Absolutely. And onto the ASICS 10-kilometre run course. It's an out-and-back, flat and fast terrain along the Noosa Parade on a mix of road and pathway. And they'll go straight out. Little tricky thing about this course, though, you can see on the way back they've got that little dog leg, that little loop, extra 1 kilometre loop that they need to do before making their way back down Noosa Parade and into that finish line.
You say fast, I say difficult. It's a challenging course. We've got different perspectives. We're joined by Toby Coote, one of the leading coaches in triathlon in Australia. Toby, you've been out doing your research, got a bit of homework, you've come back to report for us.
Yeah, I like to look at Noosa as we always see someone as a dark horse that comes through, and we talk about our champions all the time, but over the last couple of years we've seen someone come out of the woodwork and that, and I think this year I think the ladies is going to be a very tough race. We know our champion, we know what she's going to be able to do in Ash Gentle, but someone to look for is someone that's a strong rider and a young one on the charge, Jessica Ewart-McTeague. So there's someone that we probably want to have a look out for. Matilda Offord had a phenomenal end of the Triathlon Australia season last year with a couple of elite titles. We haven't seen her do much, so I'm not sure where she's at with what in her progress, but watch out for her. And then also one of our World Junior competitors, Paige Cranage, she was over as part of the World's team. So
on Matilda, you've already been into the transition, had a look at the bikes, and she's not riding a time trial bike. She's riding a standard road bike, which in a non-drafting race, that catches me a little bit by surprise.
It can be, but they're a draft legal athlete, so that's their tool that they use all the time. So
Yep.
if they're comfortable in that aspect, but as I said, I went in there 3 bikes out of the whole pro field are road bikes. The rest are all TTs.
Wow.
So it shows TT bikes do make a massive difference out here. We do know that, but we do know some phenomenal athletes that have actually done quite well without a TT bike. So yeah, we'll see what happens out there.
And if you're not spending much time on the TT bike, Belinda, it can be a big change because it's a very different position on the bike, which can make a huge change then transitioning into the run.
Well, Luke Willian even spoke about that at the press conference. That was his only concern, that he hadn't spent a lot of time on the time trial bike this year.
And the time trial bikes are a lot more aggressive too, so
Yep.
it does affect the running ability off the bike if you aren't used to it as well.
Okay, so Ashley Gentle, she's aiming for number 9. Can she be beaten?
I'll go out on a limb and say probably not, unless there's some mechanical problem or that's about the only thing that probably will derail her. I watched her last year, and even though she was behind, she's won this race that many times that she knows what she needs to do out there. And a couple of these ladies and men are here for the first time. She's been here for 8 times. She knows every marker out there on that course and knows where to go with it.
One of the athletes here for the first time that I'm really looking forward to seeing in action is Emma Hogan. She's coached by Emma Carney, who holds the course record here. She's a multiple winner, dual world champion as well. What are your expectations of somebody that's competing in this race for the first time?
It can go 2 ways. It can either, they go out there and underestimate what the course is about. But I know what Emma's coach is like, and she knows how to win out there, so she's going to have that knowledge from an athlete and now a coach knowing what's done out there. Or the other way it goes around is that they can actually go out there and blow themselves up too quickly and not knowing what they're in for as well. So there's a couple of variables that we can come out with.
Okay, variables in the men's field. We've got Luke William back defending his title. Jake Bird-Whistle has won here twice, and Max Newman on the back of finishing 4th in Hawaii at Kona.
Yeah, we don't know what we're going to get out of Max. We're going to assume that he's going to be tired from back off Kona. The boys, I know Luke is primed to come back and go back to back. He's a strong rider, and I know a few of his teammates that he's been training with as well. A name to look out for is a Kurt McDonald. Yep. I know he bridged the gap from out of the swim behind and rode up to the front pack last year. I think we're going to see the men's field probably split up a fair bit this year compared to what we have seen in the past. Well, that's what I'm predicting anyway. I got the young gun, Joshy Ferris. He's another one to watch out for. He's been injured. He hasn't been able to do as much running, and we know he's not going to be there at the back end of it, but he's swimming and riding really, really well at the moment, and I know he's going to want to go out there and make a statement. And another one of our young guns that went over to the Worlds, he's a silver medalist in Toby Powers from Harvey Bay. He's a tough man. He knows how to go there. He's only young, but he knows how to hurt himself, and I think those boys may go up the front and go, look, I've got nothing to lose here, and that's what Noosa's about.
I'm going to be the kid in the exam who leans across and steals Toby's notes. So I've got all the favourites now covered off.
You've got them.
Hey, is that how you get to the top of the class?
That's how you do it, mate. That's how you do it.
Well, one of the big factors always in a triathlon is the weather, particularly as we head out for the open swim. Take us through the weather conditions and your expectations on how they will impact on the event.
Yeah, well, at the moment, we're looking at a current temperature of 18 degrees, and like over the last couple of days, it's climbed up into the mid-30s, and we're expecting to be quite warm. Water temperature is that 23. It's actually 24.6 as the official temperature from the technical official, which means there's a non-wetsuit swim for all our competitors. And there is no wind currently at the moment. You can see from the screen with the swim shots there, pretty glassy out there, and they're going to get the perfect conditions for swimming out there, and the humidity is already high. We're looking around that 88%. So nutrition out there, hydration is going to be very, very important for all our athletes.
Belinda, looking at the weather conditions, I can see exactly why you migrated north from New South Wales some 18 or 19 years ago on the back of having won this race.
Absolutely. Look, it's picture perfect there today. This is the Noosa we know and love. It's going to be glorious conditions. Like Tobe said, it's going to heat up pretty quickly, and that's going to be an issue for most of our athletes on the run. But for now, it's absolutely perfect race conditions.
Yeah, and really tough for the age groupers. That they're starting after the elites are finished, and they're competing as slightly less fit athletes
Yes,
than our elites.
they've got it tough.
When
They've
we're
got
in
it
the
tough.
absolute toughest conditions of the day. Let's take a look at some of the big favourites. And for both of you, the two names on that page that jump out to me are Jake Birtwistle and Luke William.
Correct, yeah, they're the class. Nick Free, Charlie Quinn, they're two boys that on their day can win this race. It just depends on where they are and what they can do. Joshy Ferris, we've already called him out, number 42. Brad Course, another one of the younger juniors from the World Championships. And then we keep rolling down to one of your favourites there, Pete Jacobs, the former world Ironman champion.
Celebrating the 10th anniversary of that victory, and it was his 41st birthday just the other day. He won't be expecting to challenge to win the event, but what we know about Pete Jacobs, he'll get to the finish line empty.
Yep. He will, and he's in training for Ironman Busselton coming up in November, so we expect him to have a little bit tired legs, maybe not the punch that you need for this distance.
Well, for Luke William, he comes back here as the defending champion. It took a few attempts to get his first victory. He managed to get that last year, and we caught up with him yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty special actually coming back as defending champ, because it's one of those, races I remember starting like 5 years ago, and I kind of came out and got fourth and was over the moon, and the next year I kind of just couldn't quite crack the podium for the last couple of years, and then the year before, in 2019, had a bit of a shocker day, and then 2021 was a tough year for everyone, so it was kind of made my year really. It was the goal I set very early on was to win Noosa, and to win that was very, very special. And so to come back, after watching, Aaron Royal and Jake Birtwistle kind of come back and win, it's to be in that category is pretty special.
And he's got great humility about him as well, Luke, and he understands the context of winning this event, seeing that honour roll. And I think that when he's in his 50s, maybe his 60s, and he comes back and he takes a look at the names that he's with, then it will really sink in what he achieved last year.
Well, one of the things I like about him is his coach. His coach is very humble as well, and that gets put across to the athletes as well. Luke's had his dramas here at this race. He hasn't had a couple of mechanicals before, so he knows what it takes and how hard it is sometimes to get there.
Well, let's take a look at the start list for the women, and obviously number one jumps off the page, Ashley Gentle, having won this race 8 times. The first time she won was in 2012. The first time she came here and competed as a junior and was on the podium inside the top 3. So she's going to be really tough to beat.
Absolutely, and she's had such an incredible year. This is her first year in full distance racing, and she's won pretty much everything that she's hit the start line for. So she's going to be exceptionally tough to beat today.
And Matilda Offord, who you mentioned earlier on, also Emma Hogan on their number 11, who I spoke about. She's making her first attempt at this race. Looking forward to seeing how she goes. What about number 18, Charlotte McShane, on the comeback trail?
Yeah, she's has some great performances here as well, and it's something we her swim's probably not as strong with the front girls, but she's got that capable of being able to run with them, and that makes a massive difference at the back end if we're going to have a hot day as well.
Yeah, and Belinda, Felicity Sheedy-Ryan, she's a name that always pops up as a contender, but she's been running the stiff competition for the last decade.
And we really don't know what type of form Felicity's in. She's from WA, and we know that she's been unable to race outside of WA for 3 years now.
That's tough.
So being able to do a few local events there, but it's going to be very interesting to see what type of form she's coming into this race with.
And we know the calibre of runner that she is as well, and like I said, if it comes down to the wire towards the end, she knows how to grit the teeth and get going, so definitely another name to watch out for.
Yeah, there's plenty to look for, but the big favourite certainly is the defending champion, Ashley Gentle, and just like Luke, we caught up with her yesterday. Let's have a listen to Ashley Gentle.
Yeah, I guess every time I come back to Noosa Tri, it kind of feels like I'm coming back home a little bit after, this year, such a long time away, back to normal, travelling and racing again, which was awesome. But coming back here to the triathlon always feels great. The community and the atmosphere around this event is nothing like I've ever experienced around the world, and I really love that as an Australian. And I've got a lot of titles under my belt, but each year it's a clean slate. I want to go out there and I want to do the best I can on that day, and I hope that turns out to be another win. But I don't think about what I've done before. I think about what I can do each year to get the very best out of myself.
She's brilliant, isn't she? You couldn't think of a better ambassador for the sport or for Noosa.
No, she's an incredible person both on and off the race course, and she's got a lot of pressure on her shoulders. Everyone keeps talking about you're going to go for number 9, and I love listening to her at the press conference. She's so cool, calm and collected, and she's like, you know what, I'm just concentrating on me and executing the best possible race that I can on the day.
Yeah, and she acknowledges that there's no guarantees.
No, absolutely not.
There's so many things that can go wrong in a triathlon, from the swim, from a mechanical problem on the bike. There can be issues on the run. So she doesn't look at this as an accumulation of another victory. This is one win that she wants to get, and that's the win
and
today.
And she needs to treat it as such. And she's had such a big and such an impressive year. And of course, we know that she's getting married in a couple of weeks' time to her fiancé, Josh Amberger. So she's got a lot of things going on right now. So she has to push that all aside and just concentrate on the here and now.
And she said on Thursday when we spoke to her that between her and her fiancé Josh, they had an argument as to where their honeymoon should be. He wanted to go snow, she wanted to go sun, and she won that race as well.
She did win it.
We're not far away from getting things started. Let's now go to a short break, hear from some of the people that make this event happen, and then we'll be moments away from getting started down on the beach in Noosa.
When you don't need to worry, there'll be days like this. When no one's in a hurry, there will be days like this. When all the parts of the puzzle start to look like they fit. My mama told me there'll be days like this. My mama told me there'll be days like this.
Training program week 3 day 4.
Training program week 5 day 2.
Week 6 day 4.
I feel a strong connection.
It echoes in your mind.
It's like you feel the energy in return.
It pushes you forward. You sense its power
as you exceed your limits.
Welcome back to Noosa for the 39th edition of the Garmin Noosa Triathlon. Matthew Keenan and Belinda Granger with you. Belinda, I did steal Toby Coots' sheets, and it wasn't just the outside contenders that have been left on it. He's anticipating the first male finisher at 8:04 local time, and the first female at about 8:21. So, Toby, if you want your homework, you're going to have to come back to class and collect it.
I like his work.
So now we're going to put each other under a little bit of pressure as we see Ashley Gentle preparing just the last gel to get ready. Let's go through our top 3 contenders for the men and then the women. You can kick it off. Who's your favourite to win the men's race today?
Well, honestly, you can't go past the defending champ, Luke Willian. He was third back in Mooloolaba back in March. The only thing that worries me about Luke is his lack of time on the time trial frame this year as compared to this time last year. He's been doing a lot of draft legal world triathlon events over in Europe. Of course, Jake Birtwistle, he was 4th at the Com Games in Edinburgh back in late July. He's a 2-time winner here and 4-time podium getter, so he's going to be a hard one to go past. And then Nick Free, 2nd here last year, 3rd at the Sunny Coast 70.3 earlier this year. He's in great form.
He is in good form. Well, you said you can't go past Luke William. I'm going to go past him. So I'm going to pick us. I've got Luke in 2nd, the defending champion. I think Jake Birtwistle, he's my man to win the race. And on the back of Kona, 4th in Kona, I think Max Newman, he's surely going to be fatigued on the back of that. And he's spoken about the psychological fatigue of having finished 4th in Kona. And isn't it unfair when you finish 4th but you break the course record and you don't make the podium? So I'm going 1st, Jake Birtwistle, 2nd, Luke William, 3rd, Max Newman.
I like your picks. I like your picks. And I mean, honestly, Max, he's had an incredible year. As you said, 4th place at the Ironman World Championships only 3 weeks ago. He was 2nd here back in 2018. And this year, he's had a fantastic year. 1st at 70.3 Sunny Coast, 1st at Ironman Cairns. The big question mark is, has he recovered from Kona?
And the tightening up the speed increase, particularly in that 10-kilometre run, even though they're running super quick in the marathon over in Hawaii. So now the women, I think we're both going to agree on the favourite to win.
It's too tough not to. I mean, you'd be a fool. Let's be honest. You'd be a fool to go past Ash Gentle. She's our defending champion. She's going for her 9th win. I think this is her 11th time racing here in Noosa. She's won just about everything that she's started this year. 70.3 Andorra, the PTO Open races over in the US and Canada. She won her matchup at the Collins Cup. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Yes.
How long have we got?
We need it.
Okay, so we agree Ash Gentle is the one to beat the women.
Number 1. In 2nd, I'm going to go Milan Agnew. She just seems like she's very cool, calm. She was 2nd here last year. She was leading for a good chunk of the race here last year as well. She's also very strong over this format, over this non-drafting Olympic format. She was 5th at St Anthony's Tri, then 4th at the LA Tri back in May. So I think she's in really good shape. And then I'm going to go 3rd. I'm going to go for Charlotte McShane. She hasn't been here since 2016. She's a fantastic athlete over the draft legal distances. She hasn't got a lot of experience over this distance, non-drafting, but I'm just going to put her in there for a podium.
I'm going to back her in even more than you. You've got Charlotte McShane in 3rd position. I'm going to push her up into 2nd spot. I just like the body language at the press conference on Friday. She looked at ease and she looked as if there wasn't a lot of pressure, and she's got, I think, low external pressure because of the challenges that she's had to get back into this position. She's a world-class athlete. She's represented Australia on the international stage, and I believe that she can finish in 2nd position behind that woman right there, Ashley Gentle. And in 3rd place on debut, I'm going with Emma Hogan for a spot on the podium. Again, I got to talk to her for the first time at the press conference, and she spoke with great humility of the company that she was with, but also not intimidated by the company that she was keeping. I really liked the way that Emma Hogan held herself in amongst the 8-time winner and Charlotte McShane as well.
Look, I have to agree. I was incredibly impressed with the way that she spoke and behaved at the press conference, and also 22 years of age. But what I loved about one thing that she did say, because, obviously she hasn't raced over this non-drafting format over Olympic distance, but, when they said, what's your coach told you? Because we know that her coach is Emma Carney, still holds the race record here, and her coach was, just go hard from the gun, Emma. Just go hard from the gun.
Which is exactly the way Emma Carney used to race. So I think the run link here suits Emma Hogan. She's a super runner. She comes from a middle distance track and cross country running background, and that really suits her here. I think she'll finish really strongly as well. We're just a few moments away from getting things started. In fact, 5 minutes away from the whistle going for the men to send them in the water, 7 minutes for the women as well. And this is a process where the challenge for the athletes is to warm up and contain the nerves.
It is, and you know, back when I was racing many moons ago, that was always the worst time for me. That 5 to 10 minutes right before the gun went off, you just want to get on with business. You want to get on with your job, and so yeah, I can imagine now it's just about staying calm, staying out of the sun, hydrating, and just getting those last little deep breaths in before that gun goes off.
And for everybody who's in amongst the age groupers and they're still getting themselves organised, we'd love you to share your story on social media. You use the hashtag NoosaTry. On Instagram, it's at Noosa Triathlon. We love hearing the stories of the people that are participating maybe for the first time. There's a couple of people out there that have done 30 plus Noosa Triathlons.
Unbelievable.
And we'd love to hear their stories about how much has changed. And this becomes a real destination. A lot of people, they make one visit here for a triathlon, think I'll tick that box, but then they keep coming back. And this is why she's moved here since winning the race in 1998. Let's take a look at Noosa. Noosa sells itself. What a beautiful part of the world. Hastings Street, throughout the past couple of days, it has been bustling. It's been a hive of activity. And there's so many fit people walking up and down the street.
Oh,
it's
incredible.
Incredibly inspiring.
It really is. What makes me happiest and why this smile's been on my face since Wednesday is just having the full schedule of events back. We've got over 13,000 athletes, competitors, participants over an array of different events, and have the full Noosa Triathlon scheduled back after, you know, it went missing after the last couple of years. It's just been truly incredible.
They're on the beach. They're just about ready to go to make a start in the men's event, and it's elbows out pretty early on in the swim to try and get a good position heading into the water to start with.
Yeah, honestly, over this Olympic distance, it's always a very fast and furious start. You'll see elbows, you'll see people getting pushed and shoved all over the place, but it's nothing that these athletes aren't used to. They've been doing it for quite some time now.
There's predominantly an Australian field, but there's a couple of Kiwis out there as well. Luke Scott, spotted him on the start line. He's got himself ready to go. Jack Moody, also from New Zealand, is there to fly the flag for the Kiwis.
Yeah, Jack Moody, really accomplished runner. He's better over the longer distance racing, so he's a 70.3 in Ironman distance athlete rather than Olympic distance athlete, but he's spent quite a bit of time here in Noosa, so he knows the course very well, and it's great to have Jack Moody back over.
We're down to 1 minute to go before they get started underneath the 2 times U arch. 20 seconds away from getting started. Pete Murray down there, the voice of triathlon in Australia.
Going to get taken out there. Need to move left, mate. Keep going. He will take you out.
The hooter goes, they get underway, the elbows are out, the sprint is on for the water. Belinda, it is an intense start to any triathlon.
It really is, and we know they've got about 610 metres before they take that first left-hand turn around that pink buoy. So look at the conditions though, Matt. They are absolutely perfect. We know here that if the northerly does start to blow, it can really chop the conditions up. We saw that on Friday afternoon for the 2 times U 1,000 metre swim, but nothing like that today. It is like a milk pond out there.
Yeah, if you're a swimmer that had a lot of experience in the surf, you'd be a little disappointed. But for those that are more accustomed to just doing all their training in the pool and lake-style swims as opposed to out in the ocean, they'd be pretty happy with the conditions.
Oh, they really would. And we know that it's a one-loop swim, so they'll head straight out for 610. They'll then take a couple of left turns, and then one more left turn where they'll swim parallel to the beach before then exiting towards transition. But that was a pretty clean start, I have to say. 24 men racing here today.
With you, boys.
Most of these men would be used to 50-plus fields, as we see our women now making their way.
And
3
there is
minutes
Emma
down.
Hogan in the green
Yes,
colours who we
there she
spoke
is.
about as making her debut in this race.
Ash Gentle in the
right in
roker.
the middle.
How long we
So-
got?
Very exciting start here. We have 14 women, 15 women, excuse me, 15 women starting here today.
Ash Gentle making a change in her position.
I did see that. That was a late change.
All the athletes you see in the blue colours, they're part of the Smiling for Smitty group, fundraiser for research into cancer and prevention of melanoma. And the women make a start for the 39th edition of the Garmin Noosa Triathlon. Ashley Gentle, an 8-time winner. She's off to a really good start. She made the change in her position on the beach. So far, it's worked.
It has, and you know, really interesting pick up there because she was in the middle. She was starting in the middle. I wondered why she'd gone far over the far side, and then I saw who she was lined up with. Milan Agnew, arguably one of the strongest cyclists out there, so very smart move from Ash. We know that last year Milan Agnew and Ash Gentle were together on the bike. They are both two of the strongest riders, along with Jessica, racing today. So really smart move from, and just shows the experience that Ash Gentle has.
And you've lined Milan Agnew up as one of the
I have.
athletes to watch in this one. She's had some pretty good performances so far this year with the 7th place at the Oceania Championships. She was 6th at Mooloolaba. So she should come here at the back end of the season with real confidence of what has been a good 2022 for her.
She has had a really good 2022, and she is very, very strong over all three disciplines. I mentioned earlier that she was 5th at St Anthony's and 4th at the LA Triathlon, both non-drafting Olympic distance events. She raced very, very well there. She's spent a lot of time in Europe. She was in Girona. I was actually lucky enough to be in Girona this year, and she was there training really hard. Great place to train. I know you've been there as well. Fabulous place to train. So, yeah, she's in really good form, and she seems nice and relaxed. Led for a long time here last year and was, of course, run down by Ash Gentle, who is arguably the strongest runner in the field.
Yeah, she is. We're on board with the men here at the moment. There's a few just dropping off at the back, but it's a pretty broad pack at the moment, still out together at the front.
Yeah, we are expecting the men to swim around that 18-minute mark, but you can see that it's not really... I was expecting it to split into 2 or 3 smaller groups, but right now you can see there's that distinct group off to the left of screen, and then you've got another smaller group off to the right of screen off to the left. But yeah, there's no standout swim. We've got no one that's going to swim off the front here today. We are expecting it to be a group out of the water.
One of the great events is on the Friday night here with the 2x 1,000 metre ocean water swim, which has been won by Kai Hurst 10 times. And often there, as you mentioned on Friday, it can be a little bit rough and you've got to be able to read the surf. I think I've seen Kai Hurst win that swim event with hardly swimming at all. He just reads the surf so well.
Exactly. No such luck today, though. They're going to have to swim this 1.5 kilometres.
When they made the change from swimming behind where we are positioned at the moment, and they had the nice smooth waters in amongst the river area, by comparison to out in the ocean on the beach, what were your thoughts when they made that change?
Oh, I was over the moon. I mean, everyone thinks of Noosa and they automatically think of Noosa Main Beach,
yeah.
Laguna Bay. It's iconic. People around the world know this beach and it's absolutely beautiful. And 99% of the time it's protected, particularly in the mornings. It's only in the afternoons when that northerly can sometimes blow up, like we saw on Friday night, that it gets a bit tricky in. For most of the time, this is what we get. We get these conditions. They're perfect for a triathlon. So I was really happy.
Yeah, I thought it was the best decision that the organisation made
ever.
in a long time. Because you're right, when you think of Noosa, you think of the beach, and it is a postcard. And so often in sport, we hear about the great venues of the world, like the MCG or the SCG or Centre Court at Wimbledon, but they're stadiums. This is the stadium for triathlon. This is the stadium for the Noosa Triathlon, and this is what makes the event and the sport so well regarded and such a beautiful sport to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I've lived here for coming up to 20 years, and I still go for runs through the Noosa National Park, and I pinch myself. You know, coming back from Hell's Gate, you get this view, And honestly, I pinch myself. Sometimes it's that perfect it doesn't look real.
But Hell's Gate, you're not making it sound like a
It
whole lot
doesn't
of
sound
fun.
that great, does it? But it is. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, the National Park is a beautiful spot to go for a run, and that is at the left-hand side of the screen as we look at the pictures now as the elite men are making their way off Noosa Beach. And we saw all the athletes in the blue colours smiling for Smitty, David Smitty, who passed away sadly now almost 20 years ago, but a little bit less than that, around about 18 years ago, with an aggressive melanoma. But that organisation for the Marta Foundation out of the hospital in Brisbane, they've raised $14 million, a lot of it through participating in the Noosa Triathlon for research into cancer.
Every year it gets bigger and bigger, and they get to go off behind. We've got our professional men and women who are obviously in the water now, and then our open males and females, and then they're the next wave, and so they should be, because they do an outstanding job.
I look forward to seeing them get underway. We'll see a few images of them as well. One of the great things also about triathlon is the elites and the age groupers compete on the same course on the same day. And so often, as we're in a commentary position that's right on the end of the transition between the bike and the run, you can hear the age groupers talking about the situation of the race in the elites, and you can hear them encouraging them. And then vice versa, once the elites are done, they hang around and they encourage the age groupers.
And that's something so unique to the sport of triathlon, and I think it's why most of us got involved in the first place. There's no other sport like it in the world, and I love that. And you'll see the age groupers out there on the run, and they'll be cheering on their favourite professional athletes, and I just love that.
It's a cliche in a lot of sports that I'm just trying to better my performance from last year. I'm just trying to beat myself. And that is the crux of triathlon, which makes it so appealing. Whether you finish first or 31st, it's how did I compare to last year?
Exactly, and you know, I'm looking out there now, you can see there's no wind blowing. I think we're going to have really fast conditions. We're going to see some fast times posted today.
I'm looking forward to the bike. In fact, Belinda, I'll leave you for a little while. I'm going to go out and do the bike ride because I like the idea of going up Garmin Hill under these conditions.
Getting that Strava record?
I won't get a Strava. I need a few wheels to sit on the Strava record, and this one is non-drafting. Oh, the elite women, Ashley Gentle off to a really good start. Traditionally for Ashley Gentle, despite the fact she's won this event 8 times, it has been the swim where she's ever so slightly, and I say slightly, vulnerable.
No, you're right, and particularly over short course. It's funny now that she's a long distance athlete, you know, starting her long distance career at the beginning of this year. She's actually a really strong swimmer. She's one of the strongest swimmers now. Obviously, in long distance racing, the swim isn't as important as it is over that shorter distance in those draft legal events. And with the women's race, we know that there is definitely no standout swimmer. We are expecting it to be one big group out of the swim. It was interesting listening to some of them, Charlotte McShane and also Emma Hogan, talk about how they really wanted to try and get a little bit of a gap on Ash. But I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm not sure you ladies are going to do that because she's swimming really, really well right now.
So you gave them that look of, good idea.
Good try.
But good luck.
Yeah, good luck doing that.
Well, it is still pretty tight at the front of both the elite men's and the elite women's race. The men, they've been out on course now for 9 minutes, so they're around about halfway through this 1,500 metre swim. The transition, though, from the swim is quite a long one.
It is 300 metres, and that's very long by any stretch of the imagination. It's very long. 300 metres from the exit of the swim all the way across Hastings Street and then into Lions Park here where the transition is. Beautiful big transition. After the event, after Super Saturday finished yesterday, I went for a walk, and it is a sight to behold. I think it's something like 8,000 bikes. It's a sea of bikes, further than the eye can see, and it really is a spectacular sight.
It is, but you've got to know where you put your bike in transition. There's a lot of experience in that. Obviously, the elites, they get the opportunity to have the prime position, and they've got a lot more space between their bikes to get the shoes on and get out onto the bike leg.
And you can see now that you've got that one lead swimmer out front, but then it's a big pack behind. This is exactly what we thought was going to happen here in the men's event. As we said, no real standout swimmers.
Any expectations on who will come out first?
Obviously, I think Jake Birtwistle will be up there, as well as Luke Willian, Charlie Quinn. So they're all around the same. We don't have any Aaron Royals here. We know when Aaron Royals been here in the past, he's an exceptionally strong swimmer. We often see him get a little bit of a gap on the rest of the field. But Aaron Royal, of course, is over in St George, just raced the 70.3 World Championships last night. So unable to be here today, but look at that view. That is absolutely beautiful. As you can see, great conditions. Only the tiniest of rolling waves coming in, so they're not going to get much assistance coming into shore today. They're going to have to swim the entire 1.5 kilometres.
And you take a look at the amount of people that are on the beach waiting to get themselves started. There's the athletes in the blue colours for Smiling for Smitty. In addition to that, there's so many support networks out there as well with family and friends supporting them. 1,500 metre swim off the famous Noosa beach.
Yeah, it really is. As we said, it's a single oblong loop in an anti-clockwise direction. Starting and finishing at the iconic Noosa main beach. And they head straight into shore, and then we've got that 300 metre run all the way from Noosa main beach across into Lions Park as our men are on their way back to that last turn can before they then swim parallel to the beach. So you can see that big pink can down there, so the big pink buoy, they'll make their way towards that, they'll then turn left around that, then they'll have one more turn can on their right before they exit the water. But you can see one big group spearheaded, but really all of the men really close together right now.
It is really tightly packed up together at the front of the men's race. And the great smooth conditions lend itself to that. If it's a little rougher, you can see the stronger swimmers make the most of that lead.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier to draft off swimmers' feet when the water is so calm, and that's exactly what we're seeing here now.
Someone might have given him.
So it looks like I'd pull out the cold power and throw in the wash in with it, the amount of white water that has been thrown around.
Yeah, that's right. You can see there's been a couple of our elite men just been spat off the back of that group. So those orange boys there, they are just sighting cans, so they are allowed to go either side of those buoys.
But it's the pink one they need to get around the outside.
Pink one they need to keep to their left here.
What's the penalty if they mistakenly go up the inside?
Oh, I think it's actually a DQ if you go down the wrong way. That's right.
So penalty.
For the turn cans, yeah, it's a DQ because you haven't completed the set swim course.
And with this bike league being a non-drafting bike league, as somebody with more of a cycling background, I quite like that, so we can see who the strongest riders are.
Yeah, we can, and it's 12-metre rule here. Of course, Triathlon Australia, we've got 2 dedicated draft officials for our professional men and 2 for the women. 12-metre rule, they've got 25 seconds to make that pass. And the penalty, if they do not, is 3 minutes in the penalty tent, somewhere where none of the athletes want to be today. Hopefully we won't see any athletes in that penalty tent.
And no one wants to go into the sin bin
in any sport? No, in any sport, no, not at all. So.
Well, you were in the Legends event yesterday as a former winner of this race, and what I liked about the swim leg there is we had athletes from a whole bunch of different sports. Susie O'Neill was out there, and Matt Hayman was out there as well. So
incredible.
Susie O'Neill, multiple Olympic Games gold medalist in the pool. Matt Hayman, Commonwealth Games gold medalist in cycling, winner of Paris-Roubaix. And Matt Hayman got back to the transition ahead of Susie O'Neill, and in commentary, Pete Murray was pumping up his tyres. You beat Susie O'Neill in the swim. And he said, no, I didn't. I ran past her.
I must admit,
if nobody sees it, you go
didn't
with
happen.
it.
It's like
anywhere near Susie in the swim, you go with it.
Matty's new to the Legends game. He'll get the gist of it pretty soon. But I was impressed. I just assumed Matty Hayman was doing the bike ride as you would. So when I saw that he was getting ready, putting a swim cap on, I'm like, "Are you doing the swim?"
He wanted to take the pressure off himself.
Yep. Well, he did very, very well. But Susie O'Neill, I can't say enough wonderful things about that woman. She's always involved up here at Noosa Tri. She's always got the biggest smile on her face. She's
amazing.
Incredible ambassador for sport.
And she would have been a good athlete at anything.
Absolutely.
You see her on the bike here. She's super strong on the bike. She runs well. She does a fantastic time here every single year. And a great inspiration to others as well. You know, she's got a couple of kids, she's got an amazing career behind her, but she still puts herself out there.
She does, and my husband was in the team with Susie, and he always likes it when he gets these lovely athletes that are just so approachable, so easy to talk to, and just while they're going to give their all, they're there to have fun.
The elite men still pretty tightly packed together up towards the front of the race as Luke William is out there as the defending champion. A brilliant victory by Luke last year. Jake Birtwistle is back after having won this event twice. He's been on the podium a few times as well. And Max Newman, another one of the contenders, not fresh off the back of finishing 4th at Kona, because that is something that you couldn't quite refer to after being fourth in Kona, but he's off the back of fourth in Kona, and I'm looking forward to see how he sharpens up on the shorter distance.
Yeah, me too. And as we said, he was the winner here back in 2018, so we know that he does have some natural speed. The great thing about Max coming into this race is he's so relaxed. He knows that he's had a great season, probably the best season of his career. So really, anything that happens today is an added bonus.
Almost 16 minutes now for the women, so for the men, sorry. So they're pretty close to hitting the beach and making their way that 300-metre journey across the transition. And the little tricky part about the transition is they go down the hill to get across Hastings Street and barefoot. It can be a little treacherous. It
can, but they've cleared the way, and I actually walked it the other day because I wanted to see just how far it was. And yeah, it's actually nice and smooth. So it seems like it's a long way, but it only takes about 1:10.
Well, starting to string out at the front of the men's swim, and even though you cannot create a big gap necessarily at this point as they're about to hit the beach, nice to get into transition first or second and have a clear look at the bike.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a really important part because you want to be in there first, get out of transition first. It means you're out of trouble. Often it gets quite hectic and quite crowded in transition. You can see right now with this big group that it is going to be quite hectic out of the swim. That run to transition is going to be quite fast because these men want to get into transition first and get out of there cleanly and clearly without any fuss.
So they're up and they're out of the water. The swim, a little over 17 minutes. It's been a pretty quick start to the race, Belinda.
That is fast. We expected them to come out in around that 18, just over 18-minute mark. So very, very fast swim. As we know, perfect swim conditions. So not surprising that we're seeing fast times.
And Luke Willian at the front. An impressive start by Luke. He's off to a good start. Jake Birtwistle, one of the contenders, also towards the front of that group. And Pete Jacobs, just after celebrating his 41st birthday, 10 years on from winning Kona, the World Championship in Hawaii. He's right in the mix.
And I also saw Max Newman was right up there in that group as expected as well.
So 17 minutes and 15 seconds, the quickest for Kurt Fryer. That is a good start.
That's a really strong swim. And you can see our women now not too far away as well, but look at the crowds down there on the beach already. And we know that it won't be long now before our first of our waves, our age group waves, Smiling for Smitty and age group waves are underway.
Kirk McDonald also towards the front, one of the athletes that you and Toby both mentioned earlier on today as a dark horse to watch. So you're both going to have a smile on your face. You've been proven to be correct so far.
It's funny, you know, we do these picks every time I do events and I always smile when I get it right, but don't worry, I think I'm about 50-50 so far this year.
Nicholas Free, he came out just a little bit further back, but he's only at 10 seconds behind the first athlete, so he's not far off the mark as they make their way in a transition.
And this is the tricky part, you know, you don't want to do, you want to be quick, but you don't want to make any mistakes. So you want it to be as clean as possible, but you also want to get out there before the crowds are.
And the run out through the bike, and then they're not able to step onto the bike until they go across that all-important line where they can mount the bike.
That's right, the mount line, it's really important. And that's what I'm saying, you need to really keep calm and collected, make sure you make no mistakes. Make sure you don't forget anything. But definitely you do not want to get onto your bike until you've crossed that mount line.
Toby Powers and Jack Moody a little off the pace. It's a difficult start for those two athletes. They've got a lot of ground to make up.
And like I said, Jack Moody definitely more suited to the 70.3 distance rather than this fast and furious Olympic distance. We know that his strength is his run.
And behind us, behind the commentary position, we can see the riders are now jumping on the bikes, getting themselves started. It's quite a big pack that is heading out, and for a non-drafting bike leg, it's going to be difficult for each of the athletes to manage to make sure they don't get the penalty. They're going to have to be really disciplined in how they do any overtaking or pausing and waiting before they do go past someone.
You're absolutely right. And when you have a pack this big, you know, mistakes can happen. It's a little tricky. It's a quite technical course for about the first 3 to 4 kilometres as they make their way out of Noosa and across through Gympie Terrace. There's lots of roundabouts, twists and turns. So I think that normally what happens is the draft officials, not that I'm saying they're relaxed, they take their time, they wait till they're out on the course proper before they start really making sure and manning that 12-metre rule.
And now the women are hitting the beach. We're getting our first females through.
This is a great swim, actually. I did not expect her to have such a lead out of the water, so incredible swim.
Hannah Knighton. This is a really strong
New Zealand
start.
athlete. So
The
she's our New
Kiwi.
Zealand athlete. And I must admit something, you know, she was an athlete that I think I mentioned to you before. I wasn't too sure about we've got 3 New Zealand athletes racing here today. Amelia Watkinson, although we call her a bit of a local, she lives down in Coolum. Hannah Knighton, and then of course we've got and there's Emma Hogan there, so that's great swim from Emma, 22 years of age, coached by Emma Carney. So great race from Emma Hogan. She did say in the press conference that she was going to really take that swim out hard to try and get herself a little bit of gap on Ash Gentle, and she's done exactly that. Charlotte McShane also there, as is Milan Agnew. So Milan Agnew, and here we go, Ash not too far behind. So she's right where she wants to be.
Oh, that's a fantastic start for Ashley Gentle. I spoke earlier about the swim leg being, if you can find a weakness, it is the swim traditionally for Ashley Gentle. But if you classify your weakness as coming just at 7 seconds behind one of the other big contenders, Emma Hogan, your weakness ain't that weak.
It is not. And did you see, that was a great camera angle. We got that close-up of Ash's face. She's cool, she's calm, she's collected. She's not stressing or going too fast or thinking, oh, I've got to catch these women right now. She knows that she's very, very strong on the bike, if not the strongest woman on the bike out there today. She's been riding incredibly well all year, but great position so far.
And Charlotte McShane was just in front of her. Felicity Sheedy-Ryan just behind her. Emma Hogan, she was the second athlete out of the water in the women's race, so she's off to a really strong start.
Now these swim times, 18:20 for Knighton, really quick. Last year they swam 20 minutes.
Wow.
So, you know, a minute 40 faster than last year's race. And it was very choppy conditions last year, so fantastic swim times posted today.
It is a great start by the Kiwi, Hannah Knighton. She was the first out. She's got a handy lead at this point. Emma Hogan now coming into transition. She's solid on the bike, but we know she's a super quick runner.
Brilliant runner, and right behind her, Charlotte McShane. And then you can see right there now, Ash Gentle. They've given her bib number 1, which I think is fantastic. Often we see the men getting the lower numbers, but they've given the women the lower numbers now, and Ash Gentle with bib number 1.
Well, and she is the greatest ambassador for this event. She's the 8-time winner. She holds the record. The next best is Craig Walton in the men's with 6. Emma Snowsill has 5. She's the next best in the women's. So Ashley Gentle, she should be wearing number 1.
Absolutely. And did you see how? Oh, we've got a bit of a mechanical issue here. Not quite sure what's happening there, but hopefully it's nothing
It's a
too much.
cliche, but the great challenge is not to panic. The drop chain here at the moment, and this is Brad Course who's having the mechanical problem. He's having all sorts of trouble getting that chain back on.
That's
and
right.
when you do panic, the adrenaline goes up, your hands start to shake a little bit, and you can't quite get things done as well as you would normally do if there was no pressure on.
Make a few mistakes, and that's what I said. It's all about staying calm and cool under these stressful circumstances. He just needs to take his time now, make sure that chain's back on properly. But it's hard, you know, when you've got out of the swim and you know you're in a good position and all of a sudden something like this happens, it's hard to change that mindset to stay cool and calm. You can see athletes going past him now and he's still having issues with it.
And he did get off to a good start. It was a reasonably strong swim by Brad Course. He came out with the leading group. He's having all sorts of trouble now. This is costing close to a minute.
And a minute over Olympic distance is a lot. Looks like he's back on his bike and underway though. Let's hope no more problems.
And then the next challenge for Brad Course is to not let that impact on him psychologically, to stay composed, not go into the red zone and say, okay, I've got to make up that minute, but stick to the original race strategy.
Yeah, it is difficult because all you want to do is get back to where you were, and you can see he's heading out right now on Gympie Terrace. So we can see Milan Agnew also. Shoes, feet going in the shoes. What I was really impressed with, did you see how fast Ash Gentle's transition was? Now we know that she got out of the water in about 5th or 6th position, but I think she was second out of transition. She had a flawless transition there.
It was smooth, it was composed,
Beautiful.
and smooth is fast. It's an old cliche, particularly in cycling and time trialling or teams pursuing, that smooth is fast, and she was smooth.
And you know what? It's just showing her years and years of experience. Now, as I said earlier, a little tricky this first section out onto the course proper, so they do need to go through Noosa, out of Noosa, along the Sound. They then go through Gympie Terrace. There's a few twists and turns and roundabouts. A little tricky, so athletes need to be really alert before they then head out past Tewantin And they'll then head towards the infamous Garmin Hill.
In the pink colours, that was Sophie Perry that was making her way out. And we get a chance to now look at the age groupers' bikes and how jammed together they are by comparison to the space that we see in the elites.
Oh, look, the elites get it easy. I mean, I went down there earlier today just to have a look and see where it was, and they've got so much room. It's luxurious. And then you look across to your right, and you 8,000 bikes. It's quite incredible.
This is Paige Cranage making her way out onto the bike, getting the shoes adjusted, making sure she's settled before she gets herself into the rhythm for this 40-kilometre bike lead. Let's now take a look at the bike course. The key point of this course is Garmin Hill, which is a climb with an average grade of around about 3%. It's a reasonably quick climb.
It is, and it's about the 10-kilometre mark. So most athletes have had a really good chance to warm up before they hit that climb, and like you said, around 3 kilometres in length at about a 3.1% gradient. It's a solid climb. It's definitely an area where if you are a really strong bike rider, you could create a little bit of a gap, or at least make those athletes behind you start to hurt. Once you get to the top of Garmin, you then head out on Noosa Karoi Road towards Noosa. This is the real time trial section of the course. Slightly uphill on the way out to that Karoi turnaround, and then slightly faster on the way back. Only thing that can get a little tricky here is if the wind does start to pick up, it can be a little tricky, particularly that descent back down into Noosa.
It is super quick on the way back, and as Toby Coot, he was out there taking a look through the bikes before the race got underway, and he identified 2 athletes in particular who are using a road bike as opposed to an individual time trial bike, and one of those is Charlotte McShane. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they go on the way back in.
And of course, you look at Ash Gentle, and she is definitely on a time trial frame. But we do have a video on Charlotte McShane. So let's just go to that now.
Yeah, so I haven't studied the start list too much, but I've had a look, and I know that there's a few girls there that are a lot younger and, might be their first or second Noosa try, and they're a bit more unknown to me, considering, I've been around a bit longer and they're kind of just really starting to come up. So there's a few people I'm a little bit unawares of, but to be honest, I think for me, it's just about focusing on myself, and that's really worked for me this year. I've kind of stepped up my swim to another level, and that's been really satisfying for me. So it's kind of just about getting me ready for that fast start, and basically just focusing on myself and my technique, and just trying to get in a good position to get around that first turn buoy, and hopefully within the very first few people.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, she's given us her insights from a couple of days ago and her expectations for the swim and getting into transition, and she has ticked that box perfectly.
Oh, she really has, and I've been lucky enough to be at nearly every race that she's done this year, and just watching her over the years actually mature as an athlete, and then now taking on this new long distance career. It's been phenomenal, and as we said, postponed a wedding for a year. She was supposed to be married last year, getting married this year finally. What a year it's been a fairy tale year for Ash Gentle.
Yeah, it hasn't. She's made the decision, the significance of Noosa. She would have been one of the favourites in Utah to win the 70.3 world title. She made the decision once those dates clashed, really early in the season. She made the call, I'm going to Noosa. That's how much this race means to her, more than competing at that world title.
Yeah, and as she said, she's done so many big events this year, big championship events, where she's had the opportunity to race the best in the world, so she's got nothing to prove here, and she's raced them and beaten them. So to come here at Noosa and have this as the last race of the season, I couldn't think of anything better.
This is Hannah Knighton, who led them out of the swim. She's leading on the bike. She's settled herself into a nice rhythm. She doesn't have the big deep dish wheels on, which will be handy on the climb, but that might cost her a little bit of time on the way back into Noosa.
Yeah, I agree. That time trial section, once you hit the top of Garmin Hill and you turn left onto Noosa Karoi Road, that entire section all the way out towards Karoi and then all the way back, pretty much all the way back down to Gympie Terrace, pure time trialling. And that's when you're going to see your disc wheels and your deep dish front wheels, and those athletes on the time trial frames really make a difference.
The early part of the course is quite technical. They make their way through Noosaville. There's a few speed humps to contend with, quite a few roundabouts. Noosa is well known for its roundabouts.
We have got roundabouts to go into roundabouts to go into roundabouts.
As we were making our way from Brisbane Airport coming into Noosa on Thursday, we didn't have a single traffic light, had 13 roundabouts.
Oh, the roundabouts. It's always, whenever anyone comes here for the first time, it takes them at least a good week before they get used to the roundabouts.
Hannah Knighton off to a brilliant start. She swam sensationally. She got a bit of clear water before heading into transition. And she's now into her rhythm for this 40-kilometre non-drafting bike leg. Heading out through Noosaville. Position on the bike looks good. And hydration is crucial throughout the bike leg, Belinda, because this is a part of the race where she can make sure she's on top of the nutrition before heading out onto the run.
And definitely, and it's something that you don't want to miss, particularly here at Noosa. We know that Noosa is renowned for its very hot and humid conditions. And even though we've got beautiful temperatures of around 20 degrees Celsius right now, we know that once these women and men and women hit the run, the temperatures are going to start to rise quite significantly. And if you haven't looked after yourself early on in the bike, then the damage is done and it's going to really show on the run.
Just saw a sign on the left-hand side of the road, free ice bath.
Oh,
that'll be
sounds
very
good to
popular.
me.
It does sound very good, trying to make sure the engine doesn't overheat. We're now joined in commentary by a guy who's won this race a few times. I've lost count. Is it 3 times you won here, Courtney?
Yeah, I think it's 3 times. I didn't quite get the 4th.
But yesterday you had a win as well. You were in the Legends Try. I saw you with Josh Amberger. It looked like he was ready to call a little bit of a truce. Let's have some fun. You went for the handshake. You gave him the brush off and started sprinting.
I think that was all planned, and we were ready to have a good sprint. And I was thinking, you know, Josh is obviously pretty active these days. I thought he'd give me a good run, but that's probably why I never went to Ironman and he did.
Yeah, he's been a brilliant athlete in Ironman events and 70.3 events as well. For you, Noosa, what does this mean to you personally?
Oh, mate, I think Noosa is the event in Australia, right? And I was actually just talking to Jake's dad over here to the side, and obviously he's out there trying to win. And, you know, you see the Australian athletes come back to Australia after an international season. It means a lot. I know I owe Noosa a lot, and so many other athletes that have put us on the map here in Australia in mainstream sport. You know, because of this event and the history it holds, and the other athletes that come here in the running and the cycling, and you know, it's continuing to go to strength to strength.
It was a big call, wasn't it, by Ashley Gentle to skip the World Championships, the 70.3 World Championships, a discipline or distance that she's been performing really well in. Skip that and come here. And go. She's won 8.
It's amazing, because if you think about triathlon, right, you've got, you know, your performance, that's one thing, but then you've got all the, you know, 1 year of training. I think we crashed on roundabouts out there. You've got all technical things that happen, the surf, so many variables in triathlon, and to continue to come back and do that year after year is, you know, quite amazing.
It was a really quick start in the swim for both the men and the women, and we've seen the men go through in just over 17 minutes, the first woman through in a little over 18 minutes. It's been a really fast start.
Yeah, it's a changing of the guard, isn't it? And generations, definitely. I mean, you're seeing that across the triathlon, you know, right across the world at the moment in Ironman, and you know, you've seen it here in the last few years at Noosa. You know, guys, if you come here as a guy, you've got to run under 30 minutes. You know, full stop, and that's just crazy to think. You know, 10 years ago we were, you know, probably running 32, 31 minutes and going, we're going to be in a good shot to win here. So. You know, these guys, not just 1 or 2 of them, the whole field and the girls are going absolutely amazing. I mean, you can see there a 29:33 spit, Belinda's showing me. That's just, you know, I look at that and just go, well, you know, wow, that was our fast run time without riding, and they're doing that now out here on the bike.
Well, they're on the bike at the moment. They're on Garmin Hill, and Toby Cooter's out there with them. Toby, what are your thoughts?
So if you think that Maxie Newman's going to have a hang-up from Kona, it's totally the opposite. He is putting the hammer down on this bike, and we've got a lead pack of 6 guys. They're all legally apart, but he's really tearing the legs apart. We're sitting on about 50 to 55 k now. There is no wind out here at all, and they're getting perfect conditions. Last year's winner, Luke Willen, just sitting off the back of him. He's just in control as we're going up Garmin Hill. But Kurt McDonald did a lot of the work, as we expected, trying to get the speed through. Young fella Joshy Ferris in this group as well with Charlie Quinn, and also another favourite in Jake Birtwistle.
I'm impressed that you managed to get another mention in there for Josh Ferris. You spoke about him, Toby, before the race got underway, so you're pretty happy that one of the dark horses is up towards the front. Courtney Atkinson, looking here at Max Newman off the back of finishing 4th in Kona. The thing that grabs my attention is no water bottle on the bike.
Yeah, I mean, we spied one in the frame somewhere. I mean, these bikes are, you know, going from strength to strength. I'd hope he's got one at the front there. But, you know, I mean, he's just come from Hawaii in the heat. He might be thinking, you know, we're over by 8 a.m. this morning. I can get some water out in the run, and now they're going to ride. I mean, you've got the splits here. What are they going to ride? 54 minutes, give or take. He might be just calling it that. You know what? I'm going to do this without today and get out there on the run and give it my all.
Incredible. I'll look to see whether he's got a water bottle squeezed
I think
in
I
between
did
the
see
bars,
one. Yeah, if
but
you
I
look
couldn't
there,
see
you
one
can
on the
see, yeah,
bike.
you can see one
Yeah,
there
he
squeezed
has
in
got
between.
one.
Yeah.
I am relieved. I was a little bit concerned when I didn't see one at all on the bike, but he's got one sandwich.
Well, that was just a leading question then, because you put me in the box saying
Sorry,
you didn't have a water bottle, and there you go.
But you gave a great answer anyway. Ashley Gentle, she's into her riding quite a big gear. Ashley Gentle, we're seeing a bit of movement at the front of the race on the climb.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how they're going up the climb, I'm surprised. Like, they're obviously really pushing, because, you know, to sit out of their bars and they're actually not down sitting in their aero bars. I know they sit very low in the bikes these days at the front end, but what you're seeing is they're sitting in that aero spot still. They're flying up here. You might even see he's actually going to go and have a go and get a take. But I think it's a big tactical move up that hill, because if you overtake and then get in the front, you know, then you've got to do the long haul out to the turn on your own, and that's, you know, going to take a lot of energy, because then when you turn, it's more of a downhill run on the way home. I think if you're going to see a move, it'll be right here at the top of the hill. So I think Max might be happy just to slide in the second position at this point and follow the pace making out in front, which at this point is being set by Kurt McDonald. Yeah, well, anyone's guess at the moment, but I just remember, you know, back in the day riding up this hill, this was the real, like, you know, decisive part of the race where you thought, what's going to happen here? You start to get a feel for the legs of the other riders, because out to that point, it's very flat, it's very fast, you're fresh. At this point, you're starting to go, okay, now I've got a bit of sting in here. This is how I feel today. Do I need to save for the run? Am I going to push on? And that's really the part of the race. I mean, and everyone comes here, right? It's the Noosa Hill. It's well known in triathlon, and it's known to make and break races. Hannah Knighton, she's going through the roundabout. She makes a right-hand turn here. She's now less than a kilometre from turning left onto Garmin Hill. What's your thought process, both of you? You've both won here in the past, as you're heading towards the base of the climb.
Well, like, you know, Hannah Knighton, she's new to Noosa. She's from a short course background. We know that she competed in her very first World Cup this year in Bergen, Norway. And so we know that she's a short course athlete. I don't know how many non-drafting Olympic distance events she's actually done. And to be leading the race this early, and of course we know that she's going to be leading up Garmin, I'm sure she's quite excited, but it's about keeping it under control and not letting it get away from you. But she's having a superb race so far.
And I mean, it's the end of the season too, right? So you're always, you know, you've got form, and you've seen how all the athletes have raced throughout the year, but you don't know, have they had a little break when they've come back from overseas? You know, have they purely targeted Noosa as their event this year, or are they actually coming into form off an injury? So they're all the questions that I think having an event in Australia in November actually just adds that extra, you know, little kind of spice to the mix, because you can never guess it. But, you know, I think the favourites out there today are still, you know, once the run comes around, we're going to be watching them going for some big wins.
Max Newman's just gone over the official top of the climb for the Strava segment. Belinda?
I love watching this now, and you know, Max Newman's doing exactly what we saw him do in Kona 3 weeks ago, and I'm thinking he's doing this on purpose. He's looking now to see who's got the strong legs, and he's going to work with that person. Right now it's McDonald, and it's a smart move, because if he's going to have any sort of residual from Kona, we're going to see it on the run. We're not going to see it in the swim and bike. So he wants to try and get a little gap now, just like he did in Kona. It worked for him there pretty well. So don't be surprised to see these two men now try and get that gap as they take that right-hand turn. They'll then take a left-hand turn, and they'll be on Noosa Karoi Road. And then I think we'll really start to see a gap start to form.
And can you imagine his confidence at the moment? I mean, you talk about coming to an event off a high. The guys just, you know, all of them obviously went under the world record out there. He, you know, I remember, I've got a story about Max, because I was watching Hawaii the other day, and I got, you know, with the Norwegians and what's happening at the moment, I got super interested again in everything that was going on. And I remember racing Max in an Xterra event when I was a young kid. So for those that don't know, that's like off-road triathlon and mountain bikes. And, you know, at the time, I'm sure he's just a teenager, skinny little bit. And then the next thing, you're seeing him out here in Hawaii Ironman, actually, you know, #1 Australian, fighting there for the win. And that's what, to me, you know, you asked earlier about Noosa as a sport, but triathlon as a sport, I think it's amazing, because, you know, you can, realistically, you can be a talented youngster right through the sport doing well, but you can also just work your butt off in this sport
Absolutely.
and reach the top of the tree. You know, for me, that's one thing that's unique to triathlon and in endurance events, that, you know, if you just give it a really good hot shot, you can get there in the end.
Oh, one of the greatest of all time, Jan Frodeno, talks exactly about that. He was asked a question via social media about his VO2 max, and he said, well, it's not that impressive. Wouldn't go through a lab test and you'd identify me as a world beater. He's Olympic Games gold medalist from Beijing. He's won Hawaii multiple times, I've lost count. He's one of the greatest triathletes of all time. And it comes down to his key talent is actually his work ethic.
Day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. And this is what we're seeing from Max. And what I love about Max, he's coached by his brother, Mitch. So between Mitch and Max, and he's done a superb job. So I think around 3 years now. And to see how Max has improved over those 3 years, with this year culminating in this year, which has been incredible for Max.
Yeah, and obviously, you look at him riding here in BCM and these teams that are now global teams giving him support. You know, it's not only that physical preparation, it's not only that, I suppose, having the backing, but it's also the team you put around you. And, you know, when you see, I just love to see athletes supported in a way in triathlon, not just around the globe, but here in Noosa as well. And you see the benefits of that. So he's obviously got the right testing, the right aerodynamics, all of those things you got to tick. You know, that's extra and above just pure physical preparation.
Definitely.
Hannah Knighton is on the climb. Max Newman led over in the men's race ahead of Kurt McDonald. Jake Birtwistle was the third over the top. It was then Charlie Quinn, Joss Ferris and Luke Willian in the sixth position. He's still in contact. This being a non-drafting event, so they're riding time trial bikes. A lot of these athletes are accustomed at Olympic distance riding road bikes in a drafting position. How different is it off the triathlon transition from the bike to the run, from a standard road bike versus a triathlon bike, making that transition?
I think these days it's probably less so. I mean, the positioning's got a lot better, and there's a lot more technology and a lot more tools that go into providing you a position to make sure it's optimised to go running. I think if you probably went back, you know, I'm sounding old now, but if you went back, 15 years ago, we were riding very, very different on the road bike to that time trial bike position. And I mean, if you look at these guys now and how aero they look, we looked really ugly if I go back to some of the old pictures. But, there's just so much technology and tools and around efficiencies these days. These guys are dialed in. They know exactly what they do. And I also think they do, the sports have come together. There was a real... there was a real divide between short course and Ironman, and now what you're seeing with this, you'll see Ash, who's gone from short course, he'll jump on into the 70.3s, and
yep. Well, you think about the Norwegian boys, both Gustav and Christian, and they're swapping between the two and doing it
every week,
effortlessly.
This looks effortless. This is Jake Birtwistle. He's on the BMC bike as well, just like Max Newman. He's stealth though. He's in the all black, but we won't be missing Jake today.
No, and like I said, I happened to just get the chance to chat to his dad before I jumped on here, and Jake's obviously been down in Tasmania, hasn't raced in a while, and I'm sure he is hungry as hell to get out there today. And I look at Jake and just absolutely amazing athlete. We need to and we want to see him back on top of the world, and I think today might be the day he probably gets out there and shows us something special.
Ash Gentle on the climb, setting into the rhythm. She knows she's got Hannah Knighton out in front, who led through the swim and got to the base of the climb first. But Ashley Gentle will get a lot of support, particularly when she comes back towards Noosa and gets close to the blue carpet.
She's the darling of Noosa, there's no doubt about it. And what we've seen from Ash today and what we've seen all year, she has a solid swim-bike combination, but obviously it is her run where she does most of the damage, and she's done that all year this year. Put herself in a really good position coming into T2, and then she's just let that run of hers do the talking.
I mean, after 8 years, you're going to get pretty well known.
Yeah, absolutely.
If everyone who shows up year after year, and then I suppose, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 40% of the field are first-timers, which is always the beauty of Noosa, right?
Yeah, it is.
It attracts, so many new people to the sport, but it's also got the history of our sport in the one event. But yeah, when Ash walks around, she's definitely the one that everyone's looking at and going, well, can she do it again?
She's incredible. And, it's just so lovely to see she talked about, you know, switching over to long distance and being in control of the races and only doing the races or having the ability to do the races that she wants to do. And you know as well, if you get to pick and choose your races, you're going to race happy, you race well.
Yeah, a happy athlete is normally a fast athlete.
Yep.
This is a fast athlete. This is Josh Ferris, who, just as you were talking about Ash, he took a look across the camera and gave a little thumbs up. That's always a good sign.
That's a great sign. He's also got a nice train there behind him as well. So you know, hopefully his legs are feeling really good and gold. I mean, with this event, and I know there's no drafting, you know, per se, but there is that benefit you get, you know, and it may not be an aerodynamic benefit, but it's just a pacing benefit, and that's the same in the run as well. If you can sit in behind that group and is there a move going on here?
That looked like Amelia Watkinson. Now this is interesting because Amelia Watkinson from New Zealand, but obviously a local here, lives in Coolum with her partner. She's been injured. She had a really nasty crash back in June, broke her elbow, it required surgery. This is her first triathlon since the injury. But she's been doing a lot of bike riding. She finished 4th in the general classification at the Sunshine Coast 22, a tour of Sunshine Coast not that long ago. I'm a little unsure where her run is at, but we knew that she was going to be doing very, very well when it came to the bike. She's riding really, really strongly right now. So it doesn't surprise me that she's gone past Ash.
And she's put a bit of pressure on us. They're going across the top of the climb with the Garmin timing map for the Strava segment. It's Hannah Knighton who goes across the top in first position. She's got almost a 20-second advantage over Amelia Watkinson. A few seconds further back is Ashley Gentle. It's then Charlotte McShane. She's just about 20 seconds, 19 seconds then behind Ashley Gentle. Next best over the top, another 4 seconds behind is Emma Hogan. So Courtney Atkinson, all the big pre-race
all
favourites
the big guns are there.
Are in touch.
They are, and I mean they're not massive gaps at this stage either, so nothing's blown out. And I think Ash would be very happy with where she is there. You know, well within striking distance of you know, for her running standards. So here we go. They're quite close here, and another move happening. It's Ash has just passed, has she?
So there's, you've got Hannah out in front. You've got Amelia Watkinson just in front of Ash now as they head out towards Karoi. So as we said earlier, this is the real time trial section of the course. You know this course quite well. It's slightly uphill all the way out to that Karoi turnaround, and then of course a little faster on the way back.
100%, but you don't, the wind, and we're not sure, it's like a very, very good conditioned day, so there's not much wind, and it's, you know, sometimes you come out and you're going uphill with the tailwind and you think, oh, I'm right, my legs are good. You turn around and then suddenly the wind whips up and you're into a headwind, so that downhill advantage completely changes. But we've just seen their turn now, and you can see they're just reshuffling to make sure they get their positions to come home. And that's also important because as you come back into town, once you get down that fast downhill, you start to hit the roundabouts. And if you're at the back of that pack, that's where it can start to zap your legs because it's like a rubber band.
Yep.
You all come together, you get through the roundabout, it spreads out again, and you've got a sprint.
And did you see then they really concentrated around that turnaround, and they were very, very close. And as soon as they got around, they all pushed out to that 12 metres.
100%. And that's, yeah, coming into town, right? I think you obviously, you don't, if it was me racing, you know, I probably wouldn't want to be leading. I want that advantage of being able to sit in and pace, but at the same time, I don't want to be the last one in the group and having the chance that someone actually lets that rubber band break, and then suddenly you're off the back and you've got to put in that massive effort.
Oh, there's a big move. So Amelia Watkinson has now gone past our early swim leader. So she has gone past Hannah Knighton. So great ride from Amelia. This is exactly what I thought she would do here today.
Oh, she was so impressive on the climb, getting over the top of Ashley Gentle. Ashley Gentle currently in third position on the road in the women's race. At the front of the men's race, we've seen things come together. Max Newman taking the decision just to slip off from the front. He won't be in a physically drafting position, but he'll be in a psychological drafting position. This is Josh Ferris now, who's opening the throttle up and trying to pour on some pressure. And this is one of the athletes Toby Coote spoke about as a rider to watch. I think we've got Toby with us. He's just seen the women go over the top of Garmin Hill. Toby, what's your assessment of the race so far?
Yeah, although there's no wind out here, so they're all ahead of schedule, so they are firing out on there. I just heard your commentary going through that Amelia Watkinson had come through. Hannah led up over the hill and looked pretty comfortable. Out of all of the girls that have gone through, there's about 30 seconds gap between the first three, and Ashley Gentle looked really, really composed and just in control. And she knows how to win here, and that makes a massive difference out here. So they looked very good. Charlotte McShane, and we also had, I forget the other lady, and Emma Hogan were probably about another 30 seconds down on those girls over the top of Garmin Hill. So we may see them try and make a few changes and try and move their way up as well.
And they're athletes, Courtney Atkinson, who can work together without drafting off each other to make sure they don't lose any more distance and maybe even close down that disadvantage.
Yeah, 100%. But what I think you're seeing now, them coming together with a group like this, I think you start to see the short course boys probably it's coming into their advantage. So, Luke Willen and Jake, I think you're going to start to look at them for this run because, the nature of this 10K, it is flat, it's fast. I see there's Luke Scott up there as well. We've got that New Zealander in there. It could be a bit of a wild card, but I think you're probably starting to look unless a big move's made on the way home to those fast
and
runners.
I think one of the key points that Tobes just made, no wind. So that's going to suit them as well because those stronger riders, which are predominantly our longer distance athletes, they're not going to get the advantage that they probably would have liked if we had a bit of a crosswind or a headwind, which we're not going to see today. So we're going to get fast times, and I think it really does fall into our short course athletes.
Yeah, the tougher conditions would have suited Amelia Watkinson, who's leading the bike at the moment. You spoke about her at the start of the show, and she broke her elbow fairly recently. This is her now, but she performed really well in one of the National Road Series bike races here on the Sunshine Coast, where she finished in 4th position overall.
Yeah, and what I love about Amelia, it was awful. I mean, she was in really good form, had that crash. It was just one of those crazy crashes, required surgery. It meant a long time out of the pool for her and a long time off running. As soon as she was able to get back on the bike, she's been riding really well. And what I love is she's taken advantage of that, and her bike riding's gone up another level.
Well, it's pretty tight at the front. Courtney Atkinson, 3-time winner. Thanks for joining us.
No, it's always a pleasure, and I'll be cheering at the end to see who gets there. And let's hope Ash can win. What's now? That's
number 9. It'll be number 9.
9 and then on to 10, right? Because that's obviously the big one. But
she has to come back next year for the 40th for number 10. I mean, how could you not?
You rounded out perfectly. The OCD in me would like to see that happen. Courtney, enjoy the rest of the day. You can watch it from the comfortable side of the blue carpet, and we'll be back with more from Noosa in just a moment.
When you don't need to worry, there'll be days like this. When no one's in a hurry, there will be days like this. When other parts of the puzzle start to look like they fit. My mama told me there'll be days like this. My mama told me there'll be days like this.
Training program week 3 day 4.
Training program week 5 day 2.
Week 6, day 4.
I feel a strong connection.
It echoes in your mind.
It's like you feel the energy in return.
It pushes you forward. You sense its power.
As you exceed your limits.
The 39th edition of the Garmin Noosa Triathlon, and it is tight at the top of the table. When the elite men went through the halfway mark of the bike leg, 20 kilometres covered, the top 5 separated by just 5 seconds. Belinda Granger, Max Newman, he's at the front, he's pouring on the pressure. He's had a brilliant season, and he's a real contender today.
You know, he was in VIP yesterday for Super Saturday, and he was just so relaxed, big smile on his face, and why wouldn't you? 4th at the Ironman World Championships. He was right up with the Norwegians all day long. He had a faultless race. To see him come out here today, if he can have get a podium here today, that's just icing on the cake. And
for the man who now joins us, Jeff Meyer, the Managing Director of Ironman Oceana, it's once the race is underway that he can relax a little bit more, because it's the build-up, Jeff, that is the most stressful for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of the 5-day festival that leads into today. Once we get to today, even though we've got 8,000 athletes out there, we sort of get into our rhythm and we just roll it out. But, the days with the breakfast fun run, Super Saturday yesterday, it was just fantastic.
And I believe that your rhythm includes a luxurious 3.5 hours sleep each night?
Roughly about right, yeah.
It is a huge event, Ironman Oceana, that you're the Managing Director of. It is a big organisation, lots of events, obviously Ironman events, half Ironman 70.3s as well, but this one is really special to you in particular. You've worked on this event for a long time.
Yep, definitely, over 20 years. This is our DNA. This is where we came from. Originally as USM events, this was, sort of our baby, and I've grown up with this, and I'm very proud of it. It still instills our values and everything that we do. So I love the event, and that's sort of then when we got acquired by Ironman in 2011, it still permeates through everything we do.
And you're carrying on the legacy of the great Garth Proud, and I love that the bridge right near the finish has been renamed the Garth Proud Bridge.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's a great legacy to him, and he fully deserves everything that he gets. He was a fantastic human being, and, we owe him so much for this event.
The athletes that are making the race at the moment, we have Amelia Watkinson here, the Kiwi out in front of the women's race on the bike leg. But for me, as somebody, I got lucky enough to get an invite here in 2010 for the first time. The key for me to this event is the people that work on it, the back of house, because they're the great consistency. The athletes, they roll through. There's a few changes in generations, but I've seen you here every year. You've got some other wonderful people that we see working on the event that are here year in, year out. They're the ones that make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, we're a big family. We have to be. It's so hard to put these events on. Like you said, the lack of sleep and all the rest of it. But for me, it's like sort of racing, and the aura of pulling off a fantastic event like this is the same buzz. And the team, they're tired, but this afternoon we'll all celebrate, we'll sit back, have a beer, and it'll just be a really lovely atmosphere around that, because we've pulled off something very special.
And you know what I love the best? It's not just about today's event. It's not just the Garmin Noosa Triathlon. Yep. It's a festival. It started on Wednesday, and it's been going strong all the way through to Sunday. And I think for me, having been in the sport of triathlon for 20, 25 years, that's what I love so much about Noosa Tri.
Yeah, and that's what creates it. There's a special sauce around Noosa that just has that atmosphere. Like, you get, 13,000 competitors over the weekend, all like-minded, all health conscious, fitness. Well, alcohol sales are pretty big tonight, but you get that many people in a town, and it just creates that buzz.
You can see it, you can feel it.
Celebrities that come and participate every year, it's just brilliant.
The elite men, they're charging back towards town. Max Newman is out in front. At the midway point for the women, Amelia Watkinson leading by 16 seconds ahead of Ashley Gentle. And Toby Coote's got the easiest job of all. He's on the back of the motorbike following the race. Toby.
Oh, mate, I am loving it out here. Talking about the downhill just with the boys, and Maxie Newman, he knows his course like the back of his hand. He had a look at it, he knew where to go, and he just put the hammer down just before the crest of the hill, before they started going down, and opened up probably about a 20 or 30 second gap on the guys. A lot of them didn't chase. They just sat there, and whether they couldn't chase, their legs were that sore. I saw Kurt McDonald was dropping off. He didn't look that great. And the defending champion, he's over 2 minutes behind. He's lost 2 minutes from the top of Garmin Hill back to the top of the hill.
Now, Tobes, do you think this has been a strategic move from Max Newman? We know that he only competed at the Ironman World Champs 3 weeks ago. May not have that upper speed that you need over 10K. Is he trying to make these men really hurt, get rid of as many as he can, and if he can't get rid of them, at least deaden the legs for that 10K run?
Well, I can tell you he's deadening them their legs for sure. No, the way that Max races, he's very astute in how he puts together a race and goes that way. And I have no doubt he's targeted areas out here on this course that he could utilise to his advantage. And he's been the aggressor. Every time there's been a time that needed to be gone, he's the one that's done the work. He's the one that's gone to the front. He's the one that's trying to open up that gap. So, yeah, I think it's a strategic move. And like you said, BG, that having those legs, he might not have that speed that these guys are going to have, but if he can break them on the bike, he's going to give himself all that chance.
Well, the pressure is on at the front of the men's race. Josh Ferris also up in contention along with Jake Birtwistle, who's a 2-time winner. This is Josh Ferris. He led through the midway point. It's now Max Newman who's out in front of him. He's getting that right distance. We're joined by Jeff Meyer, who's the managing director of Ironman Oceana. Jeff, when you look at the athletes that are here and competing, we've got Ashley Gentle, who we've spoken about a lot, as an 8-time winner. Can you find a better ambassador for this event than Ashley Gentle?
No, not at all. I mean, look, I was here for all of Emma Snowsill's victories and, 6 in a row, basically, and I thought that's never going to be beaten. And then Ash comes along and she's going for a 9th. She is a fantastic lady. She's a great ambassador for us and the sport. I wish her all the best out there today.
She's an amazing role model for young kids. I'm lucky enough to bring my family up here with me, and for my daughter in particular to get a chance to meet Ashley Gentle and have a chat to her and be inspired by her. It's a real privilege as a parent to be able to come here for that.
Yeah, and exactly when she had the choice of going to the 70.3 Ironman World Championships or be here in Noosa, and she chose us. I mean, that gives me goosebumps already, so it's great.
You spoke about alcohol sales probably go up on Sunday afternoon, certainly by comparison to Saturday and Friday. The athletes, a lot of them, particularly the age groupers, this is their grand final, and they let their hair down tonight. For you and for your staff, when do you get to let your hair down?
Our staff do a good job of letting their hair down tonight. They might be exhausted and all the rest of it, but look, it's a tradition that we work really hard, but we also have a good time with it. So once we start bumping this place out this afternoon, we'll definitely sit back in the woods and have a few quiet ones and just thank everyone for all their efforts and the like, but I'm sure they'll be out tonight. I won't be, but I'm sure they'll be out at the surf club at some time.
You've got a lot of sleep to catch up on. And the Noosa Council and Visit Queensland, they're a big part of this event, and it wouldn't happen without their support.
No, not at all. I mean, look, we had Anastasia Palaszczuk here this morning, the Premier, just announcing a new 5-year deal for Noosa, which is fantastic. Queensland events have always been a great partner of ours, and we can't do it without them, so it was fantastic to have her here today and announce that.
It's such an exciting time for sport in Queensland, particularly with Brisbane hosting the Olympics in 2032. As a local, you must be loving that.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of buzz around and the lead up for it and all the leading events, legacy events, so there's a lot going on. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, out in front we still have Amelia Watkinson. This is something you predicted, Belinda Granger. So look at that smile on her face.
I know,
Jeff. She's pretty
right.
happy with herself.
I like it when I get it right. As I said, I'm about 50-50 so far this year. And look, we know there is a little bit of a question mark over that run leg of hers just because of that injury. But getting back to the head of the men's race, we've got Max Newman on the front. On the back there, that's young Charlie Quinn. He's coached by Tim Van Berkel, another of our great pro athletes. He's actually up here this weekend. Usually Tim would be racing. He's here in the support role, in coaching role this time round. But great to see Charlie Quinn also having a great race. He led majority of this race this time last year and just didn't quite time the 10 kilometres perfectly. I'm sure he'll do a lot better this year, but he's put himself in a really good position.
We saw a fantastic run yesterday. As we talk about the 10 kilometres still to come for these men, there's Charlie Quinn in 3rd position. The elites were brilliant yesterday, Jeff, but an ambassador, one of the patrons for this event, Steve Monaghetti, he was the crowd favourite, and he just missed the world record for 5 kilometres for 60-year-olds by 3 seconds.
I know, that was crazy, and the crowd was absolutely going hysterical. I mean, it was so good to see, and it was only a second or two, and it was just like, Monas, so...
I'm blaming him for this little bit of a hoarse voice that I have. That and the fact that I had to run 1.5 kilometres faster than I've run in about 20 years. But yeah, I couldn't stop. I admit I was one of those people, not athletes,
it
people
was fantastic.
screaming.
It's an amazing guy to be 60 years old and still doing some 320s.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Wow.
And we had Buster Mottram, the great Craig Mottram, who's part of the Walk of Fame here in Noosa because he's won the ASIC Bolt 5 times. He's 20 years younger than Mona, and he's asking the question, Steve,
how is it possible?
Where do you find the motivation to keep running so fast? And Buster's one of our best.
Yep.
There's a great race out in front. Max Newman is leading. It is Josh Ferris who's in second position. Charlie Quinn in third spot. Belinda, I'm tipping that you like this from Charlie Quinn. Riding, just not trying to force the issue and saving some biscuits for the run, learning from last year's experience.
Well, Tim Van Berkel was here yesterday afternoon watching the Super Saturday, and I asked him, I said, how's Charlie, how is his form? And he said, no, he's in really good form. He's running really, really well. So, to be honest, Burks was saying that his run is his strength. So that's scary because he's in a great position now, right up the front. They've managed to put a gap on the runners, on the Jake Burt Whistles and the Luke Williams. So it's going to be very interesting, but he's certainly putting himself in the box seat. Let's just hope that he goes out in a little bit more of a controlled manner this year. I know he got a little excited last year, as you would, leading Noosa Triathlon. I don't blame him, but if he can just keep a lid on it for the first 5 kilometres and then have a little bit more of a well-paced 10K run, he could be winning it here today.
We're on board with Hannah Knight at the moment. She led out of a swim in the women's event. Briefly back to Charlie Quinn. The great Billie Jean King. She said, you win some and you learn some. And last year, Charlie will have learnt a little. Ashley Gentle is flying. She's on her way down the main part of the descent. And a chance to just suck in a little bit of oxygen. Toby Coote, you're out on board. Ashley Gentle is flying.
She is. All our first 3 girls look really, really comfortable. You can tell Amelia's just got that heavy gear grind that she normally does, but that's normal that we see with the long course athletes. Our short course athletes, we see them spinning a little bit more, and that's what we're getting out of those girls. The second pack of girls, so the chase girls, we've got Jess Hewitt-McTeague, Charlotte McShane and Tilly Offord. They're probably about a minute down, so they're all still in striking distance as well.
Well, Ashley Gentle looking good. Watkinson will need a good head start off the bike into the run. The men are making their way through Noosa Heads. They're not too far away from getting back into transition. Yesterday, Jeff, Saturday morning is a pretty special day with the kids down at Noosa doing their mini tri.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, to get the community involved like they have been, for the kids, the breakfast fun runs have been fantastic. And the special tri just adds such a special element to it. I dare anyone to go down there and not be emotionally moved when the last wave of the kids' tri is all the special kids, and they just love it.
Yeah, it is a huge Saturday morning with the Super Kids, the special tri as well. Jeff, congratulations on everything you've done getting the 39th edition together. Can't wait to be back here for the 40th next year.
Yes, the planning is well underway for the 40th, so it's we're looking forward to it. And thank you guys, it's been fantastic.
Get a good night's sleep. Plenty of action still to come here in Noosa. Thanks, mate.
And you can see that our lead 3 men.
You don't need to worry. There'll be days like this when no one's in a hurry. There will be days like this when other parts of the puzzle start to look like they fit. My mama told me there'll be days like this. My mama told me there'll be days like this.
th edition of the Garmin Noosa Triathlon, and the elite men, they are charging back in towards Noosa. We're seeing the age groupers heading out the opposite direction. They're just getting their bike leg started. Matthew Keane and Belinda Granger with you. Belinda, one of the things I love about this event is seeing the age groupers cheering on the elites. Once the elites are done, then they swap the favour
Swap the
back the
roles,
other way.
that's right. And it's great to see, and you can see them age group is going one direction, heading out on the 40-kilometre bike ride, while our professional men are coming in. They're on Noosa Parade now. They are literally moments away from going up and over that Garth Proud bridge that we were talking about earlier on, and then straight into transition. They'll change the bike shoes for the run shoes, and they'll be out on the 10-kilometre, the ASICS 10-kilometre run. But this is a great position for these three men.
It's Max Newman who is at the front in the red colours. Behind him in the green in second spot, that is Josh Ferris. In third position is young Charlie Quinn. And they've opened up maybe a 20-second advantage on the chasing group behind them. There's been a really strong bike lead by these three.
Look, they've put honestly, it's a great position to be in for all three of these men. They'll get into transition. They'll be able to have the transition to themselves, which is always an advantage. It means that they won't make mistakes. You can see shoes are already off. You've got Max Newman leading in. Right behind us here now in our studio, we have got the best seat in the house, I have to admit. Josh Ferris, coached by his father, Mick Ferris. The great coaching and dad and son team, with Charlie Quinn coming in right behind. So these three, it'll be interesting to see, Matt, exactly what that split is back to our next athletes.
So it's Newman who leads, Ferris in second spot, Charlie Quinn in third. As you mentioned before, Charlie Quinn last year, he was leading for a significant amount of the 10-kilometre run. He's pacing himself nicely so far today, and this is the big moment, the 10-kilometre run.
You know, we've had, and it's been a whole year, obviously, since Noosa, so I'm sure Charlie's matured as an athlete since then. He's out. Look at that beautiful transition from Charlie Quinn.
He has nailed the transition. That's Jake Birtwistle. He's on his way through. This is Kurt McDonald. He's the next one in. Hot on the heels of the two-time winner of the event, Jake Birtwistle.
Yeah, look at the, and what was that split? Did you manage to get that split then? Because they've got a sizable advantage over these next lot of athletes coming in, but great race from all of these men. You can see Jake Birtwistle, definitely on paper, he is the strongest runner in the field.
And he's a joy to watch run.
He's
looks as if he's just about an inch above the surface of the road the whole way through.
Yeah, he's a beautiful runner. He's had a great year. He was 4th place at the Com Games.
This is Kurt McDonald making the transition. He rode really well. He was particularly strong on the climb up Garmin Hill. Second fastest time up there behind Max Newman. And
they are in and out very, very quickly. You know, in the longer distance racing, the transitions, you can't win a race by having a fast transition in longer distance racing. In shorter distance racing, it is definitely more important. You can see Charlie Quinn, he was our first out. You've got Josh Ferris right behind him. So Josh has been a little injured, so it's going to be interesting to see how his run form is here today. I was speaking to his father, Mick Ferris, at the Noosa Aquatic Centre early in the week, and we knew that he was going to be in really good form for the swim-bike combination. Just a little bit of a question mark over his head for the run. He may not have that upper speed needed to compete against these men here today.
For Charlie Quinn through the transition spot on the way out, he has got himself now a 42-second advantage over Jake Birtwistle. He's 4 seconds ahead of Josh Ferris. So the challenge now for Charlie is to run his own race. He can't do anything about Jake. He's just got to do his thing.
He does, and you know, he must be thinking, this is deja vu for this young man. This is exactly where we saw him this time last year. So, as I said, I think he's matured as an athlete. Tim Van Berkel's his coach. He's out there on course. He'll be helping him today. Obviously, coaches are allowed to give help out there as long as they're not assisting them physically. So he'll be out there giving him all the support he can.
And Kurt McDonald, he's out in 4th position. He is at 54 seconds behind, 56 seconds behind. Max Newman has gone through. He was a little slow through transition, Max Newman. He was quick into transition, a little slow out. He's at 20 seconds behind.
And as I said, you know, Max Newman is a long-distance athlete now. He's fresh off his 4th place at the Ironman World Champs. Transitions aren't as important for those longer-distance athletes as it is for our short course athletes. And Charlie Quinn is in a bit of a transitional phase. He's still short course, but I know that he is actually moving up to the half distance, so he is going to start doing a few more half distance races. So he's in a little bit of a transition phase right now.
Do you think the half suits him better?
I think it will. I really do. I know that he's I think he's planning on doing 70.3 Melbourne and then going across to the Laguna Phuket Triathlon. So that'll be his last race of the year over in Phuket, Thailand.
Amelia Watkinson, she's been leading on the bike essentially since the top of the Garmin Hill. She made a big move up that climb. She's been extending an advantage over Ashley Gentle, who's in 2nd spot. It's been a really strong bike leg from Amelia Watkinson.
And very smart racing from Amelia. She knows that she doesn't have the running speed that some of these other women have, and obviously particularly Ash Gentle. And I know that as being first race back since her injury back in late June. If she can manage to hold on to a podium position here, she'll be over the moon.
Yeah, that would be a really big result. Lonely road for Charlie Quinn. Nobody in front of him, no pace setters. He's got to run to his own numbers.
Yeah, and it's an interesting run course. You know, it's a deadpan flat. You couldn't get a flatter run course if you tried. A lot of it's out in the open, so even though it's still quite early here, that sun is right up there in the sky and it is going to start getting hotter. It's a shorter run out than it is back because obviously on the way back they do have that loop, that 1 kilometre extra loop that they need to do, so that when they make the turn at the far end of the run course on the way back, and sometimes you forget and you think, all right, I've made the turn, 5k to go, I'm on my way home, and you forget and you're like, oh, that's right, I've got that 1k extra loop that I need to do. So you can see Noosa Parade, Noosa Council recently have just done it up. It's absolutely beautiful.
Here's a look at the course. So it's the short way out and the long way home.
Long way back, that's right. And it's a mixture of, as you can see, that beautiful asphalt, brand new, just been laid last week. And they'll make their way all the way out around the lake. They'll go all the way around where they'll make that first turn. And then on the way back, they'll come back right against them. So as you can see there, that 1k loop that I was talking about before they then make their way down Noosa Parade, up over the Garth Proud Bridge and to that famous finish line here right behind us.
For Charlie Quinn, who leads the men's race, similar position what he was in last year, how important is that turnaround point for him to get the visual look at Jake Birtwistle, the chaser?
Really good question, and that's what I love about this course. Well, you can either love it or hate it, depending on what type of athlete you are. But the greatest thing about this course is he just needs to keep it under control. Control what he can, do what he can, stay cool, calm and collected, look after himself. Once he makes that turn at the far end of the course, that'll be the first indication where he'll be able to see exactly how far back those athletes are. Sometimes that's a good thing. Other times when you've got the likes of Jake Birtwistle running you down or chasing you down, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But I think right now he's in the box seat. He's doing everything he can in his power to make sure he's got a great lead going to that turnaround.
And Max Newman, he was out of transition in third. Max Newman is 20 seconds, well, at least through transition, ahead of Jake Birtwistle. He's 22 seconds behind Charlie Quinn. What we know about Max Newman, who has podiumed here in the past, he hasn't won Noosa, but he's been on the podium, is off the back of a brilliant result at the Ironman World Championships. He's not going to slow down over the 10Ks.
No, and as I said, this is just a little bonus race for him to end out the season. He's already had a spectacular season, winning nearly everything that he started, and then obviously culminating with 4th place at the World Champs. Anything here is going to be an added bonus. I know he'd love to be on that podium, and he's putting himself in a position to do so, but I knew that if we were ever going to see any sort of residual or tiredness from that Ironman, it was going to be here on the run.
On the bike league, it's still Amelia Watkinson who leads the women's race. They're not too far away from heading into transition. Charlie Quinn out on course on the run on his own. Yesterday, throughout the ASICS 5k vault, we particularly saw Jack Rayner, who was trying to break the course record here for the 5k vault. He had the Garmin on. He was measuring his kilometre speed. Charlie Quinn, he doesn't have the Garmin on. Often we talk about this in the bike as well, being able to watch the wattage output. So he's racing on feel.
He is, and you know, again, this is a really individual thing. Some athletes love to stick by the numbers and they'll stick by them like glue. When I used to race, I preferred to go by feel. I mean, a lot's changed since I used to race, and obviously there's been so many technological advancements made. But I love to race by feel. I always trained with a watch, but I always loved to race by feel, and that's what Charlie Quinn's doing here now. I'm sure, you know, last year he obviously raced by feel and it let him down a little bit, but I'm sure that today he's got it well and truly under control.
Amelia Watkinson making the left-hand turn. She's got a little over 1,500 metres to go before she heads into transition. In terms of racing on field, I had a good conversation with one of Australia's former great cyclists, Stephen Hodge, about a 3rd place finish that he had in a stage in the Tour de France in a Cahors. And he said he wishes he didn't have his heart rate monitor on because he knew where his threshold was and he got a little bit distracted by that and he had to throw, really, the data out and just go on feel and go with the race. Numbers, because you can break through a new barrier.
Absolutely, and I think particularly with this shorter distance racing, sometimes if you stick to the numbers too closely, there's missed opportunities.
Yeah.
I think in the longer distance racing, when we go over 70.3 and the full distance, I think that's when the numbers are more important because you're just out there for such a long period of time that you do need to monitor and really have a lot of maintenance over that longer distance and really think about those numbers. But over a short course like now, over 10K, I think Charlie Quinn's doing the right thing. He's just going by feel. He's going to have a good look to see how far back and who is behind him. And then he knows once he makes that turn, he's got about just over 6 kilometres left to run.
Amelia Watkinson heading back into the final few hundred metres. Charlie Quinn is in a similar position to last year, but last year's winner, Luke Willian, he's really been struggling. He has gone out of T2, 3 minutes behind Charlie Quinn.
Yeah, so something has definitely gone wrong for Luke on the bike. We know last year he was off the bike right up in front. He would have been in this group off the bike. So it'll be interesting to talk to him post-race to see what has happened, whether it's just his legs just weren't firing today or whether he has had a little bit of an issue, some sort of a mechanical issue, but that is a very unusual ride for Luke Willian. And it's disappointing to see. It's always difficult when you come into a race as the defending champion. You've got that weight on your shoulders. Some people thrive on it, others it can take a little bit out of them. But hopefully Luke Willian can have his trademark run and run himself through that field.
It's a very different sort of pressure. And we hear this in all sports. It's one thing to get to the top, it's even harder to
stay there.
Which speaks volumes to 8 wins by Ashley Gentle.
That's right.
And likewise with the great Emma Snowsill, who won 5 in a row here, one of the all-time greats of Australian triathlon, and Olympic Games gold medalist from Beijing.
Yeah, definitely Emma Snowsill. Actually coming back to Australia, hasn't been back up to Noosa for a while, but coming back over here at the end of next month. So Jan and Emma will be heading back here, so it'll be great to have them back here in Noosa for a little while.
2.5 kilometres covered, and Charlie Quinn still leading. His advantage now extending ahead of Josh Ferris. He's at some 24 seconds ahead of Josh Ferris. Another 1 second behind is Max Newman. So Newman has managed to catch up to Josh Ferris, and at around about 50 seconds behind Jake Birtwistle. So it's status quo for Jake from when he exited T2.
Yeah, look, I'm looking at Charlie Quinn now, and if you get a close-up of his face, he's completely under control. His breathing's under control. His shoulders are nice and relaxed. He looks really, really good right now.
So too does Amelia Watkinson. Over the Garth Proud Bridge, the descent off this, it's time to take the feet out of the shoes and get ready for transition.
Yep, and I'd say right now you can see she's just as you said that, perfect timing, Matt. She is taking the feet out of the bike shoes. And now this is when the mind needs to change. You know, you can see there, she's really pushed this bike. There was a little bit of a gasper there, so she knew that she needed to get a gap coming into transition. Amelia's a strong runner, there's no doubt, but again, a long-distance athlete probably doesn't have the speed over 10 kilometres that a lot of these other women do behind her, so she knew that this was the only way that she was going to be able to stay on that podium. So great race from Amelia. She's doing everything she needs to do now to try and stay in that top 3 position.
And she's in the best spot to get a quick, smooth transition because she's the first one in there, so there's no traffic for her to contend with. The shoes are going on really quickly. Ashley Gentle behind us. Here's the noise. She comes in to transition, and I've run my own personal clock to get the time gap between Ashley Gentle and Amelia Watkinson. As Ash goes through, the gap is 43 seconds.
So honestly, and you know, for any other athlete, you'd say, well, 43 seconds is a good chunk of time. We saw the men's race, it was around 20 seconds, but 43 seconds for the likes of Ashley Gentle and the way that she runs, that is nothing.
She can make up 5 seconds in transition. She was so smooth in T1.
And just watching her run all year over this half distance, she's been amazing. So at 10K, I'm sure she still has loads of running speed left.
And she saved a little bit of time, no socks. Whereas Amelia Watkinson, an extra couple of seconds to get the socks on.
And you normally over the 10K of the Olympic distance, you do go sand socks, no socks. You don't need them, it's not long enough. Over the half distance and longer, you definitely go socks because there's more chance of blisters to occur and you don't want that to happen. So it doesn't surprise me that Ashley's gone without socks.
On board with Charlie Quinn. His advantage after 2.5 kilometres having been covered ahead of Josh Ferris and Max Newman. It is at 24 seconds. It is a little more than that back to Jake Birtwistle. Jake Birtwistle is in 4th position. He is